A major new battle is developing over one of the most important pieces of potential evidence in this investigation, Nolan Wells' cell phone. And after a new report from Nancy Grace's crime stories, we're getting a much clearer picture of why Nolan's family has not simply turned the phone over to investigators without conditions. But that's not the only development. There are also claims that two witnesses who personally knew Nolan say they saw him on Horn Island around 6 p.m. on July 4th, potentially well after the Triton reportedly left the island. So tonight, we need to break down both developments, because there is a lot happening here. Before we begin, remember that the circumstances surrounding Nolan Wells' death remain under investigation. Some of the information discussed in this report comes from statements made by attorneys, family representatives, witnesses, journalists, and experts appearing on Nancy Grace's crime stories and other referenced reporting. Allegations and witness accounts should not be treated as established facts unless and until they are independently verified by investigators or established through official proceedings. Now, here's what we know. The phone evidence. According to the discussion on Nancy Grace's program, Nolan's family says they are willing to make his phone available for forensic examination. The dispute appears to be over how that examination will take place, and who will be present when the data is extracted. According to the segment, Nolan's family and representatives met on July 15th and discussed turning over the phone while having an independent forensic expert involved. The family reportedly wants the examination conducted in a way that protects the integrity of the evidence and documents the chain of custody. Nancy Grace herself pointed out that having independent parties present during the examination of evidence is not necessarily unusual. Forensic expert Scott Aker explained during the program that investigators can use specialized software such as Cellebrite to create a forensic extraction of a phone. That extraction could potentially provide investigators with information including text messages, photographs, and other digital data, and potentially some deleted material if it has not been overwritten. That could be extremely important, because investigators may be able to reconstruct portions of Nolan's activity and communications around the time he disappeared. Then came the demand. According to Nancy Grace's report, after the July 15th discussions, the family later received a demand from the district attorney's office, requesting the phone within a limited period of time. But there was a problem. Nolan's family was reportedly out of town attending the National Association of Black Journalists conference in Georgia when the demand was made. The family maintains that this should not be interpreted as refusing to cooperate. According to the segment, the family's position is essentially, pick the date. Pick the time. Give us notice. Our forensic experts will be there, and the phone can be examined. Their concern appears to center on ensuring that the extraction is conducted with independent oversight and that the evidence is properly preserved. Nancy Grace questioned the developing narrative that Nolan's family was somehow refusing to cooperate. And that distinction is important. Wanting safeguards surrounding the examination of evidence is not the same thing as saying investigators can never examine it. Why this phone could matter. Think about what a forensic examination could potentially reveal. Who was Nolan communicating with? What messages were exchanged? Were photographs or videos taken? What timestamps exist? What applications were being used? Was anything deleted? And could information contained on that device help establish a timeline of Nolan's final hours? Those are questions forensic investigators may be able to explore. But we need to be careful here. We do not currently know what is actually on Nolan's phone. The existence of the phone itself does not prove wrongdoing by anyone. The significance will depend entirely on what a proper forensic examination reveals. Now there's another major development. Attorney Tyler Cox, who represents acquaintances who traveled to Horn Island with Nolan aboard the Triton, made another significant claim. According to Cox, two witnesses who knew Nolan personally told investigators they saw Nolan on Horn Island at approximately 6 p.m. on July 4th. Why is that important? Because, according to the timeline discussed on Nancy Grace's program, GPS information reportedly indicates the Triton left Horn Island at approximately 4:30 p.m. If independently verified, a credible sighting of Nolan at 6 p.m. could become an extremely important piece of the timeline. But Nancy Grace also made an important point. The witnesses have to be tested. How close were they to Nolan? What were the lighting and environmental conditions? How long did they see him? Were they impaired in any way? How certain are they about the time? And most importantly, is there independent evidence that corroborates their accounts? According to Cox, these witnesses knew Nolan and were confident in their identification. But at this point, those remain witness claims that investigators must evaluate. Another question: where is the return video? Nancy Grace also raised another question during the program. We've seen video appearing to show people preparing for and boarding the Triton before traveling to Horn Island. But Grace asked, where's the video showing the boats returning? Crime Stories investigative reporter Dave Mack said during the segment that they had not seen video evidence showing the boats returning to the mainland. That does not mean such footage doesn't exist. It simply means the program had not seen it. And that distinction matters. If surveillance footage exists showing the boats returning, investigators could potentially compare timestamps from that footage with GPS information, witness statements, phone data, and other evidence. The bigger picture. There is another important issue Nancy Grace continues to raise. She questioned why authorities have repeatedly characterized this as something other than a criminal investigation, when there are still significant unanswered questions surrounding exactly how Nolan died. That does not mean a crime occurred. It means the cause and circumstances surrounding his death remain critically important. Even if drowning ultimately proves to be the medical cause of death, investigators would still need to understand the circumstances that resulted in Nolan entering the water. Was it an accident? Was he alone? Was anyone else present? What happened during those final hours? Those questions cannot be answered through speculation. They have to be answered through evidence, and that's why the phone matters. This is why Nolan Wells' phone could become such an important part of reconstructing the timeline. The phone could potentially provide another digital layer to compare against. GPS information, surveillance footage, witness statements, boat movements, photographs, messages, and other available digital evidence. If several independent pieces of evidence all point toward the same timeline, investigators may begin getting much closer to understanding what happened. And if those pieces don't match, that could raise even more questions. Here at Black Community News, we're going to continue following the evidence wherever it leads. We are not declaring anyone guilty. We are not declaring Nolan's death a homicide. And we're not going to accuse Nolan's family of withholding evidence when their publicly stated position, according to this latest reporting, is that they are prepared to make the phone available under agreed forensic safeguards. What we want are answers. If two witnesses really saw Nolan on Horn Island around 6 p.m., investigators should determine whether those sightings can be independently corroborated. If surveillance footage exists showing the boats returning, that timeline should be established. And if Nolan's phone can provide additional information about his final hours, then a properly documented forensic examination could be extremely important. Because ultimately, this isn't about internet theories. It's about determining what happened to Nolan Wells. And his family deserves answers based on evidence. We will continue following every major development in this case. If new information emerges from the forensic examination of Nolan's phone, the witness accounts, surveillance footage, GPS records, or any official investigation, we'll bring those developments to you. Follow Black Community News for continuing coverage of the Nolan Wells case. And as always, keep Nolan's family in your thoughts as they continue searching for answers. This is Black Community News.